It was one of those days where the sky looked sick, neither bright nor dark, just a dull, suffocating gray. The kind of color that makes you feel like the world has been drained of anything warm. I was sitting by my window, staring out at the empty street below. Nothing ever happened here. A few cars, a stray dog, maybe someone trudging home from work with their head down, but never anything unusual. Until that night. I saw it out of the corner of my eye at first, just a flicker of movement against the stillness. But when I turned my head fully, my breath hitched in my throat. It was running. No, sprinting. A creature unlike anything I had ever seen, its body gaunt and elongated, its skin the same dull gray as the sky. It had too many arms, long, sinewy things that pumped in an erratic rhythm as it moved. But the worst part? It had no head, no face, just a hollow, gaping absence where something should have been. It bolted down the street with unnatural speed, its limbs contorting in ways that shouldn't have been possible. I watched, frozen, my fingers gripping the windowsill so hard I thought I might break the wood. And then it stopped. Just stopped. Mid-stride, in the middle of the road, as if it had suddenly realized something. My stomach churned. Could it see me? Without eyes? I didn't dare move. Then, it did something I will never forget. It turned. Not with its body, not the way a person or even an animal would. It just twisted. Its entire upper torso rotated unnaturally toward my window, as if it had become aware of me in that moment. Even though it had no face, I felt it staring. I don't know how long we stayed like that. A second? A minute? It felt like an eternity. And then, it started running toward my building. I didn't think. I couldn't think. As soon as the thing lurched toward my building, I stumbled backward from the window, nearly tripping over the chair behind me. My breath came in short, panic bursts as I grabbed the edge of my desk for balance. Outside, I could hear it. The rapid, unnatural slapping of its many limbs against the pavement. It was getting closer. I forced myself to move. I ran to the door of my apartment, fumbling with the lock even though I wasn't sure why. Will a lock stop something like that? My mind screamed for me to find something, anything to defend myself, but my hands were shaking too much to grab anything useful. And then, silence. The thing had been running full speed toward my building. I had expected, dreaded, the sound of it slamming into the front door, or worse, the pounding of those grotesque limbs climbing the walls. But there was nothing. The quiet was worse than the noise. My ears strained against it, searching for any sign of movement. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, facing the street. If it was coming, I should have heard something by now. And then, just as I started to think, maybe it left? Maybe it wasn't coming for me? Scrape. A long, slow, deliberate scraping sound against the outer wall. It was climbing. I turned toward the window, my mind screaming at me to look, but my body refusing to obey. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know how it climbed, but I could hear it. Scrape, thud. Like something with too many limbs pulling itself up inch by inch. Closer. I forced my legs to move, stumbling toward the window, not to look, but to close the blinds. My fingers barely brushed the cord when... Knock. I nearly screamed. Something was tapping on the glass, not knocking like a person would. It was too light, too deliberate, like fingertips or the tips of long, spindly limbs. I couldn't breathe. It was right outside. I stood frozen, my breath shallow and my fingers hovering just above the blinds. Knock. The tapping continued, soft but insistent, as if it knew I was inside. As if it was waiting. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. If I moved, if I even breathed too loudly, it would know. My apartment was on the 3rd floor. There was no ledge outside my window, no fire escape, nothing to stand on. And yet, something was there, knocking. I needed to move. Now, slowly, I took a step backward. My foot barely made a sound against the floor, but the second I shifted, the knocking stopped. My heart slammed against my ribs. The silence was unbearable. I felt it out there, just beyond the thin layer of glass, listening. I swallowed hard and forced my gaze toward the window. The blinds were still down, the slats slightly tilted, just enough that I might be able to see through them without opening them. Don't look, but I had to. Holding my breath, I leaned forward, angling my head just enough to peek through the slats. At first, I saw nothing. Just the usual view, rooftops, the dim glow of a street lamp, the empty road below. And then I saw it. An arm. Long, pale, unnaturally thin, pressed against the glass. The fingers were impossibly long, bent at awkward angles as they slowly dragged down the window pane. I swallowed a scream. And then, the slats shifted. Not by me. Something on the other side tilted them open. It was looking back. I staggered back so fast I nearly fell over the chair behind me. The blind snapped back into place, cutting off the thing's hand from view, but that didn't matter. I knew it was still there. And then, I heard it. A breath. Deep. Wet. It wasn't my own. The sound seeped through the thin glass, heavy and uneven, like something struggling to understand how to inhale, how to exist. A faint fog spread across the window, as if the thing without a head was still trying to breathe. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran. Straight into the hallway, away from the window, away from the thing that shouldn't be there. My hands fumbled against my phone in my pocket as I stumbled into the dimly lit corridor. Call someone. Call anyone. My fingers felt numb as I swiped at the screen, my breathing ragged. 911. I hit the call button. Nothing. No ringing, no dial tone, just silence. I stared at the screen. My Wi-Fi symbol was gone. My signal was gone. The clock at the top of the screen had frozen. The call wouldn't go through. A slow chill crawled up my spine as I realized something wasn't right. And then I heard it again. Not from the window. From the ceiling. A slow, wet dragging sound. Above me. I looked up. The light in the hallway flickered, casting strange, distorted shadows across the ceiling. And there, just above my doorframe, something was sprawled against the ceiling. It had too many arms. Too many joints. Its skin was gray and stretched too thin, folding into itself in sickening ways. And even though it had no head, its body was twitching, twisting, as if it was trying to see me. And then, it moved. The thing shifted against the ceiling, its body folding unnaturally, like an insect that had been turned inside out. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just turned and bolted down the hallway, toward my bedroom, toward anywhere that wasn't under it. Behind me, I heard it drop. A wet, meaty thud as its limbs hit the floor. I slammed my bedroom door shut, locking it in a blind panic. My hands shook as I backed away, scanning the room for something, anything, I could use as a weapon. A lamp? Too flimsy. A chair? Too slow. My heart? Already useless. I pressed my back against the farthest wall, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Silence. Maybe it was gone. Maybe I had imagined it all. Then the doorknob began to turn. My stomach lurched. The lock clicked softly, rattled, twisted. Not violently. Not like something trying to break in. No. It was testing it. Trying to understand it. The slow, deliberate turns of the knob sent an electric panic through my body. I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to scream. And then, the door creaked open. I had locked it. I knew I had locked it. But the door was opening anyway. Inches at first. Then more. A sliver of darkness. A long, gray arm slid through the gap. Then another. Then another. It was crawling in. I had no plan, no strategy, no weapon. Just pure, rabid survival instinct. The thing's grotesque arms slithered through the widening gap of the door, its joints bending at unnatural angles as it pulled itself in. I grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy metal lamp from my nightstand, and swung. The impact was sickening. Wet. The lamp cracked against one of its limbs, and the thing shrieked. Not a scream, not even a sound that should come from something without a mouth, just a horrid, grating noise that rattled my skull. The door swung fully open, and the creature lunged at me, its many arms reaching, grabbing. I swung again, this time aiming for where its head should have been. Another wet crack. It staggered. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I grabbed the edge of my desk, flipping it forward onto the thing, pinning its writhing body beneath. It thrashed, its arms twitching, trying to push free, but I was already on top of it, smashing the lamp down over and over. Crack. The sounds it made were wrong, not human, not animal, something else. And then, it stopped moving. My breath came in sharp, ragged gasps as I stumbled backward, my hands trembling. The thing's limbs twitched once, then fell still, losing something dark and thick onto the floor. I had killed it. I had actually killed it. But before I could even process what had happened, I heard footsteps. Not one. Many. From outside, from the hallway, from the walls, from above. I turned toward the window. The street below was filled with them. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all running, all headless, all coming for me. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. The street below, once empty, silent, was now a writhing sea of creatures. Their many arms flailed as they ran, their bodies moving in that unnatural, jerking sprint, and they were all coming toward my building. I staggered back from the window. Then I heard the first one reach the door downstairs. A deafening bang as something slammed into it. Then another, and another, and then the sound of wood splintering. They were coming inside. I turned, heart pounding. I had to get out. Now. But how? I was on the 3rd floor. The stairs were suicide. I could already hear the horrible, skittering sounds of them climbing up. The fire escape. My brain screamed the thought at me. The window. It was my only way out. I ran toward it, wrenching it open just as I heard the first creature reach my floor. Thud. Their hands slapping against the walls. The ceiling. So many hands. I forced myself onto the ledge, my body half out the window, 1 foot finding purchase on the cold metal of the fire escape. Then, a hand wrapped around my ankle. I screamed. It was inside my room. One of them had already made it through the door. Too fast. Too quiet. I kicked wildly, slamming my foot against its arm. Again. The grip tightened, bone snapping strong. And then, a sickening tear. My skin ripped where its fingers dug in, and I nearly blacked out from the pain. But I didn't stop. With one final desperate kick, I broke free. I fell, tumbling down the fire escape, my body slamming against the metal railing. A brutal, scraping descent. I hit the pavement hard, but I was alive. I looked up, just in time to see them spilling from my window, crawling down the side of the building, coming for me. I ran. I hit the pavement so hard I thought my ribs had cracked. My vision exploded in white-hot pain, but there was no time to stop, no time to even breathe. Above me, the creatures spilled out of my apartment like a flood of writhing limbs, clawing, skittering, tumbling down the walls. I ran. My feet barely found the ground as I bolted into the darkened street, every muscle in my body screaming. I didn't know where I was going, just away. Behind me, the sound was indescribable. The slapping of hands against asphalt, the scraping of limbs against brick and glass, the wet, rattling breath of things that should not be. They were fast. Too fast. I tore through the empty streets, my mind blank with terror. Every dark alley, every turn, every shadow felt like a dead end, like a trap. Then, a sound. Up ahead, a low, distant rumble. I turned a corner and almost ran straight into headlights. A car. A lone, rusted truck barreling toward me. I threw myself to the side as it screeched to a stop, the driver slamming on the brakes. The door flung open and a man jumped out, his face wild with panic. "Get in," he screamed. I hesitated. Then I heard them. Rounding the corner. Dozens of them. Their many arms hitting the pavement. Closing in. I didn't think. I dived into the truck just as the man threw it into reverse, slamming his foot on the gas. The creatures screamed. A horrible, bone-rattling noise that shattered the night. The truck lurched backward, tires skidding as we peeled away. I looked back, heart hammering, and saw them still running, still coming. And up ahead, the road was no longer empty. More were waiting. We were trapped. The truck skidded as the man fought the wheel, his knuckles white, his breath coming in frantic gasps. Up ahead, the creatures waited. A wall of writhing arms and faceless forms stretched across the road, blocking any chance of escape. Behind us, the others were gaining. Shit, the driver cursed, jerking the wheel hard. The truck swerved violently, its tires barely gripping the pavement as we turned down an alleyway. Too narrow, too tight. The metal side view mirror clipped a dumpster with a sickening crunch, sending sparks flying. I pressed myself against the seat, my heart hammering. "Who the hell are you?" I shouted, my voice barely over the sound of the engine. "Not important," he shot back. "What the hell did you do to piss them off?" "I don't know." I gasped. I stopped. Because I did know. I saw one, the first one, from my window, and now, Somehow, they knew. The alley stretched forward, narrowing into suffocating darkness. My eyes darted to the side, brick walls, chain-link fences. No way out. The man cursed again. Ahead, the alley was blocked. A rusted, chain-locked fence stood between us and the other side. We were trapped. "Hold on," the man yelled. I barely had time to brace myself before the truck slammed into the fence. The impact exploded through my body, my skull snapping forward as metal screeched. The fence buckled, but didn't break. Behind us, the creatures were here. Their arms crawled over the hood of the truck, slapping against the windshield, pulling themselves up. One slammed its many hands against the glass, cracking it. Another reached inside through the passenger window, grabbing my wrist. Cold. Wet. Wrong. I screamed and ripped my arm free, the skin tearing where its nails dug in. Then the driver pulled a gun. I barely had time to process it before he lifted the barrel, aimed it at the thing on the windshield, and fired. The shot exploded in my ears, and for the first time, one of them screamed. It jerked backward, its body convulsing. A dark, black substance oozed from the wound, but it wasn't dead. None of them were, and they were still coming. The gunshot should have killed it. Anything normal would have gone down, blown back by the force of the bullet, the damage too severe. But this thing didn't fall. It shuddered, its whole body convulsing as a thick, black ooze seeped from the bullet hole. Then, with a horrific crackling sound, its limbs twisted, rearranging themselves, the wound closing. It was healing. My breath caught in my throat. "WH, what the hell? They don't die easy, kid," the driver shouted, pumping another round into the chamber. The thing on the windshield lunged again. Bang. Another shot, this time straight into one of its flailing arms. The limb snapped backward, the black ooze splattering across the glass. The driver snarled. "Damn things take a while to go down." "But they do. We just need." The truck rocked violently. Something huge had landed on the roof. The metal buckled, denting inward. I looked up just as long, claw-like fingers pierced through the ceiling. They were tearing their way in. The truck was a coffin. "Out. Now," the driver roared. I didn't hesitate. I threw myself at the door, yanking it open as another deafening crash shook the truck. We spilled out onto the pavement, just as the roof caved in. The creatures swarmed the truck, their bodies folding and twisting as they crawled over it like a mass of writhing insects. We ran. The alley stretched ahead, and past the wreckage of the fence, I saw something, a door. A rusted metal door, slightly ajar. The driver saw it too. "There," he yelled. We sprinted, the things pouring from the truck behind us, their many hands reaching, their breath wet and rattling. We hit the door full force, shoving our way inside, and slammed it shut just as they reached us. Boom! The metal shook under their weight, the hinges screeching. We weren't safe. Not yet. I turned, gasping, my eyes adjusting to the dark, and realized we weren't alone. The room wasn't empty. Something was already in here, watching us, waiting. The room was cold, the kind of cold that felt unnatural, like the air had been sucked out, leaving something wrong behind. The driver and I stood frozen, our breath coming in ragged, uneven gasps. Behind us, the metal door rattled violently, the creatures outside slamming against it. But inside? Inside, something was waiting. I could feel it. The shadows in the room were right, too thick, too heavy, shifting like something was moving within them. Then, a shuffle. Soft, slow, deliberate. I turned my head, every nerve screaming at me to run, but I couldn't. The driver lifted his gun, his grip tight. "Who's there?" His voice was steady, but I could hear it, the edge of fear. Silence. Then, a breath. Not from us, from something else. It came from the far end of the room, past the scattered debris and rusted shelves. And then, it stepped forward. At first, I thought it was one of them. But no! This one was different. It had a head. Or at least, something close to one. A black, featureless mass, like a melted face, sat upon an impossibly thin body. Its arms were wrong, too long, twitching at the elbows, its fingers dragging against the floor. But the worst part? It was grinning. Not with a mouth, not with teeth. The black mass of its face twisted, pulling at itself in a grotesque, unnatural smile. And then, it whispered. A voice that wasn't a voice. "Oh." Crawling inside my skull.
"You shouldn't have seen us."
I felt my blood turn to ice. The driver took a step back, his breath shuddering. "What the fuck are you?" The thing twitched, and then, in a single, horrifying movement, it lunged. The thing moved too fast. 1 second it was across the room. The next, it was on me. I barely had time to scream before it grabbed my face. Cold, wet, suffocating. Its fingers wrapped around my skull, digging into my skin, its grin stretching too wide. The driver fired. Once, twice, 3 times. It didn't matter. The bullets passed through it, the wounds closing before they could even form. I clawed at its arms, but it was like fighting smoke. I felt something slipping, not my breath, not my body, something deeper. It was pulling me out of myself. I tried to scream, but the sound never left my throat. The last thing I saw was the driver running. The last thing I heard was its whisper, crawling into my mind like a parasite. "You were never supposed to see us." Then, nothing. Darkness. I gasped. Air. Light. My bed. I sat up so fast my vision blurred. My heart pounded like it was trying to escape my ribs. My room. My apartment. The familiar creak of the floor, the distant hum of the fridge. It was a dream. Just a nightmare. I exhaled, pressing my hands to my face. I felt sweaty, cold, shaky, but I was here. Normal. Safe. I ran a hand through my damp hair, still feeling that lingering unease in my chest. I needed a cigarette. The night air was cool, still. The city was quiet, just the distant hum of cars, the occasional flicker of a streetlight. I took a slow drag from my cigarette, my nerves settling. The dream was already starting to fade, becoming blurry, distant, unreal. I exhaled, watching the smoke drift into the gray sky. And then, I saw it. Down on the street, moving too fast. Too many arms. No head. Running. I froze. My cigarette slipped from my fingers, falling soundlessly to the balcony floor. My breath stopped. The creature disappeared around the corner. Gone.